In front of dozens of cameras and journalists from various countries, the President of the United States, Donald Trump, stood tall next to the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu. With a confident tone, he announced something that shocked the world.
The U.S. will take over the Gaza Strip, and we will do a job with it, too.
Yes, Donald Trump lightly said he would take over Gaza. The remark immediately exploded in various international media. Trump's statement, delivered on February 4th, 2025 in Washington, not only signaled a controversial foreign policy, but also added to the unhealed wounds of the people of Gaza. Gaza, an area that has been the center of conflict for decades, now faces the threat of total erasure. Currently, Gaza is in the first phase of a ceasefire that will continue into Phase 2. The second phase of the deal, which is expected to begin 42 days after the start of the ceasefire, will release all Israeli prisoners in exchange for the complete withdrawal of Israeli forces from Gaza. With Israel's withdrawal from Gaza, everyone hoped that there would be a glimmer of hope for the people of Gaza who have been living in the shadow of destruction due to airstrikes and blockades. However, Trump's statement seemed to be a crushing blow to that hope. Although Trump's statement was wrapped in concern for the future of the people of Gaza, many are questioning whether this is a new form of modern colonialism under the guise of aid. What is on Trump's mind when he talks about Gaza? Does he see human suffering or just a piece of land that can be exploited? Trump, with his trademark rhetoric, illustrates that if the people of Gaza stay on their land, there is only one possibility that awaits: death. Therefore, he believes that neighboring countries such as Jordan and Egypt will gladly accept Palestinian refugees. However, in reality, the forced displacement of civilians is a form of ethnic cleansing under international law.
وهذه أرض فلسطين. فلسطين هي بلد أهل فلسطين من الأبد الأبد، وما بنقدر نطلع منها مهما يكون نقدرش نطلع منها.
Under the 1993 Oslo Accords, both Hamas-ruled Gaza and the Palestinian Authority-controlled West Bank are meant to be part of a future Palestinian state, which is the ultimate goal of the US-led peace process that has been stalled for decades. Ironically, Trump casually told reporters that he thinks Palestinians would be happy to leave Gaza if they had a choice.
I don't think so. I think if they had the opportunity, they'd love it. If they had an alternative to get, they have no alternative right now.
From his point of view, Trump's ambition is to turn Gaza into a huge real estate project that will make it the Riviera of the Middle East. Trump envisions Gaza to be filled with luxury beachfront resorts, casinos, marinas, and world-class amenities like those in Nice, Cannes, and Monaco. He may have gotten this idea from his investor son-in-law, Jared Kushner. Last year, Jared proposed moving Palestinians out of Gaza and clearing it to develop the Mediterranean waterfront. From this wild imagination, Trump assured the world that the redevelopment of Gaza would create tons of jobs. He called this American ownership and disguised it with a narrative of urban regeneration. However, on closer inspection, this is nothing but a 21st century form of colonialism. If the leader of a country that claims to be a bastion of democracy is practicing forced displacement, he is essentially emulating the crimes of dictators in the past. More worryingly, it will pave the way for other authoritarian rulers to carry out ethnic cleansing against minority groups they perceive as a threat. The stated resettlement of Palestinians to neighboring countries has also demonstrated the United States' indifference to the human rights of Palestinians and assumes that they prefer modern life elsewhere to their ancestral homeland. This narrative reflects an astounding ignorance of the roots of the decades-long conflict. Trump seems to have either lost his memory or deliberately ignored the fact that the Palestinian-Israeli conflict is not simply a matter of infrastructure development or economic prosperity. It is a conflict rooted in a long history of colonization, land grabbing, and systematic injustice against the Palestinian people. Proposing relocation as a solution is just another form of erasing Palestinian identity and rights. Trump also ignores one very important thing. The reason the Palestinian people, in Gaza in particular, are willing to experience repeated wars is because they will never want to leave their homeland. Donald Trump did not mince words in his declaration to take over Gaza. Just hours before he announced his intentions, Trump had announced that he would pull the United States out of the UN Human Rights Council and stop all funding for UNRWA, the UN agency that has been the lifeline for millions of Palestinian refugees for decades. United Nations Relief and Works Agency, which has been operating since 1949, is the only hope for those displaced from their own land. From refugee camps in Gaza and the West Bank to slums in Syria, Lebanon, and Jordan, UNRWA provides education for children born into isolation, healthcare for those without access to hospitals, and food rations for families who have long lived under blockade. The United States is UNRWA's largest contributor, providing $300 million to $400 million per year. But Biden halted funding in January 2024 after Israel made baseless allegations that dozens of UNRWA staff were involved in a deadly October 7, 2023 attack by Hamas in Israel.
UNRWA employees have become exposed as the terrorists themselves.
As carefully designed, reduced aid to refugees might be expected to make Palestinians change their minds about seeking a better life outside Gaza. Donald Trump's call for the United States to take over and own Gaza certainly pleased Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu. This was clearly illustrated on his face throughout Trump's announcement in front of the press. Netanyahu also said the United States would acquire Palestinian territory. But of course, many disagree with these two shameless figures. Tariq Habash, who resigned from Joe Biden's administration because of his unconditional support for Israel, said Trump's plan was an endorsement of ethnic cleansing and a blatant violation of international law. Senior Hamas official Sami Abu Zuhri said that Trump's desire to take control of Gaza is ridiculous and absurd as a recipe for creating chaos and tension in the region because the people of Gaza will not allow such a plan to be carried out. Not much different from Palestinian leaders in the occupied West Bank also condemned Trump's statement. Even Egypt and Jordan, which Trump said would gladly accept Gaza refugees, also condemned Trump's plan. They emphasized their rejection of any attempt to annex land and displace Palestinians. The future of Gaza should be in the context of a future Palestinian state and should not be controlled by a third country. The idea of forced displacement of Palestinians is also politically unrealistic, especially for countries like Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is an important part of Trump's plan to create an anti-Iran alliance that ends with normalizing diplomatic relations with Israel. However, Saudi Arabia has made it clear that the main condition for normalization of relations is the establishment of an independent Palestinian state. With all these controversies, one big question arises. By what means and on what legal basis will Trump take control of Gaza? According to The Conversation, the United States can only take control of Gaza with the consent of the Palestinian people. Even governments, such as the Palestinian Authority, cannot give this consent on behalf of a nation. The people have the right to self-determination. Israel also cannot hand over Gaza to the United States because, according to the International Court of Justice, the territory is illegally occupied. If the United States continues to impose its will, then the world will see the transformation of the world's strongest democracy into a country that is openly colonizing. Even if Trump doesn't actually follow through, simply voicing this idea is enough to send a dangerous signal to the world. It opens the door for leaders in other countries to follow his lead. Especially in recent months, Trump has again made controversial statements that will change the map of the world. He suggested that the United States take over the Panama Canal, Greenland, and even Canada. His casual statements on annexation and population transfer create the impression that the limits of international law and rules can be easily ignored.